Hi guys, and welcome back to World of Tanks, and today we're going to be looking at the Soviet IS-2, the premium one. Now there is a Chinese IS-2, this is slightly different to that, it's got a bit thicker frontal armour I think it is, and there is a Soviet IS already in the tech tree, Tier 7. Now what this is essentially the Tier 7 Soviet IS with a few minor differences and one fairly significant one, and that being the front upper glacis. As you can see there, it's actually angled, whereas the normal IS one, well, it goes in a bit and then it's got a flat part where the driver's hatch is. Now this is basically, they're just up armoured the standard IS. Now this one in particular is based on one that was made famous by a photograph of this tank in front of the Brandenburg Gate in the heart of Berlin. So this one, number 432, is actually, you know, it was a real tank that served in the war. Now, when you buy it, it's got the number on it, 432, and it's also got the identification markings, the thick white stripe, and also the, I think, the unit or the brigade. I could be wrong on that, so, you know, like I say, I'm not a historian. But it's got the identification markings on it, but you can actually put your own camouflage on. Now, most of them actually go quite well with it, especially this urban camouflage, which just seems to highlight the numbers and the identifying markings as well. So anyway, enough of that. Right, well, one of the main differences between the IS is that the IS has 120 mil frontal armour. This is 100, but this does have the slope rather than the flat driver's hatch. And this has 3 degrees more on the hull traverse, 38 degrees as opposed to 35. This also has a smaller engine. The IS, I believe, gets a 700 horsepower engine, but I'm going to check on that. It does. When we can get back to it, this has a 600 horsepower engine, which is 20 more than the Chinese IS gets, but the Chinese IS is a little bit lighter. Apart from that, there aren't really many other differences. Apart from this gets a 35% silver bonus and a 20% XP bonus. It doesn't get preferential matchmaking, so it will see up to tier 9, which makes sense because it is just the IS essentially. But we'll have a look at the stats of it. Now, I've had this a while, but I don't take it out very often, and I think it's because I got a bit fed up of this gun, because at the time I'd been through, well, apart from the varying fire rates, I'd been through a lot of tanks, so I had a lot of tanks that used that gun, the KV-85, the IS, the Chinese IS-2, the SU-122-44, the SU-152 uses a version of that gun, and yeah, I got a bit fed up with it, so that's probably why I don't take it out as often as I should, but it's not bad. Like I say, 600 horsepower engine. The gun, its gun stats are exactly the same as the Chinese one. They're exactly the same as the standard tech tree one. 4.88 rounds a minute, 175 pen, 390 damage. It's the standard 122mm Russian gun. 217 on your premium rounds with 390 damage again, and then 61 and 530 for your HE when I stop getting tongue-tied. A horrible aiming time of 3.4 seconds and not particularly good accuracy either at 4.6. Hull traverse, like I said before, is 38, whereas it's 35 on the standard IS. But I kind of get the feeling that extra 3 degrees almost just about I think it's just there to really make up for the difference in horsepower. I've not really noticed a massive difference in hull traverse between this and a standard IS, to be honest. Turret traverse is 28 degrees, which is the same again. View range 350, the same. Signal range 440, which I think is the same. There was something else I was just going to check as well about the IS, but I can't think what it was. That was it. Premium ammunition. Let's just make sure they're the same because they could be slightly different. Sometimes they do that to your wargaming. Wrong tank. I'm all fingers and thumbs. Right. 217, yeah, it's the same. So yeah, same gun. So if you want to know what the gun's like, go in a normal IS or the Chinese IS, you're going to get a very good idea. Equipment wise, well, I've got a gun rammer, I've got vents, and I've got a gun lane drive. You can't fit a vertical stabilizer, unfortunately. If you could, I would probably forgo vents and go for that and the gun lane drive and the rammer, and they seem to be the ones that make sense because your rate of fire is not brilliant, but you've got good damage. Your aiming time's awful, so you really need to improve that, and the vents just helps with everything else and just increases your already good mobility. Skill wise, well, I've got the crew from my T10 in this. I've got Sixth Sense, I've got Repairs, I've got Brothers in Arms, which is probably a good one to have as well, and I've got Hull Traverse, the clutch braking, which again just increases your hull traverse, which makes it even better, and I've got off-road driving, and to be honest, apart from track mechanic, they're pretty good ones to have on a tank like this. The Brothers in Arms along with events would increase your rate of fire, your aiming time, etc, etc. So yeah, not bad at all really to have on there. Oh, before I forget, supplies, armour piercing shells 1025, your APCR of 4800, and your high explosive of 608, which I think are about standard again for the 122mm gun. Let's have a look at the modules. Again, I'm all fingers and thumbs tonight, I do apologise. Right. Now, it's got a power to weight ratio of 13, which is 0.4 less than a stock IS, so it is a little bit more sluggish than the IS, and that will be noticeable when you're driving it. Forward top speed of 34 kilometers an hour, and a reverse top speed of 14. Both not bad actually for a heavy. They're, you know, quite acceptable and yeah, quite workable. I mean, it's not slow, it does get up to its top speed, but like I say, it is just a bit more sluggish than a standard IS. 15% chance of fire on the engine as well, and it's a big old engine block at the back of the tank, and there are actually components in the front as well, just on the left and right side. Big old gun reaches quite far back into the turret, an elevation of 25 degrees, which is really good, and a depression of -6 degrees, which isn't particularly good, but it's workable. You're just not going to be popping over many ridge lines with it. But you do kind of play peekaboo with this. Anybody who's had the normal IS will be familiar with that, and it's quite a good tactic for this tank, especially with the long reload as well. You just pop out, take your shot, and get back into cover. Now, terrain resistances 1, 1.1 and 2.2, so again, not bad, not brilliant, pretty average. Big old turret. Radio is just in the bottom left hand side of the turret there, just in front of that machine gun port on the back. Ammunition, well, there's a lot of ammunition in the rear right hand side of the turret, that whole sort of corner, the back middle of the turret, I would say, almost just to the side of the machine gun port. You've got 2 blocks in the side of the tank as well, just underneath the rear of the turret, and then 1 in the floor of the hull as well. And as for crewmen, well, your driver's right in the middle, your commander sat up in his commander's hatch, and then your loader and your gunner are up in the turret with him. Now, armour wise, well, the basic figures are 100 for the front of the hull and the turret, 90 for the sides of the hull and the turret, and it is 90 on the rear of the turret and 60 on the rear of the hull. But again, it never really tells the whole story. Now, let's get into the figures a little bit more. 1 to 20 is the floor of the hull and the tracks itself. Don't forget your tracks are spaced armour. 21 to 30 is the top of the turret, your engine deck, and the top of your commander's hatch. 31 to 50, well, it's just those bits either side of the turret and kind of the floor of the turret, I suppose, and just under the gun mantle as well. 51 to 70, there's a thin strip across the top of the turret just behind the gun mantle, and little strips around the gun mantle itself. The rear of the tank falls into that category, the whole rear, and that's supposed to be 60, I think it said. Now, 71 to 90. Now, this is quite interesting because the sides are supposed to be 90, and I'm assuming that that's what that's indicating. And it shows the bottom part of the hull and the rear upper part of the hull, the commander's hatch itself, and all the sides and the rear of the turret as well. Now, the front part of the hull underneath the turret is actually a bit thicker. That falls into the 91 to 120. Now, the front is supposed to be 100mm, and it appears to be both upper and lower glacis, although I don't know, the lower glacis could be a bit thicker. I think on the standard IS it is one of the thicker parts on it, although I could again be wrong. But yeah, it's pretty much all over showing the same colour. The front parts of your turret as well, and all around the gun mantle, well, basically the bits that are left. Concealment on the move, not brilliant. 0.14 and that's stationary, and on the move is 0.07, so yeah, pretty poor on the move. Well, it's not particularly good stationary either, but it is a fairly large tank. Now, when you're driving one of these things, angling is kind of key, but the problem with angling this tank is you flatten out that side part there underneath the turret. You can see where it curves around, so peek-a-boom is preferred. When you top tier, you can bounce quite a few shots from the lower tiers, but you've got to be careful of the commander's hatch, and again, when you shoot at one of these things, the commander's hatch. The driver's hatch is not a weak spot in the sense that it's thinner, but it has got that flatter front, so that might be a place to shoot for as well, but you would have to have the penetration to get through there. Otherwise, the tracks don't seem to act as extra armour, so possibly the lower plate, 'cause it's a bit flatter, the lower glacis there. If not, you want to try and get round the side or the rear of it if you can, but don't forget it is fairly nimble. But yeah, commander's hatch, that's the place you want to be going for. Like I say, if it's angled, try and go for that flatter part of the side there, where it curves around, because it will sort of flatten that out a bit for you. And I think that's about it, really. So yeah, we'll get into the replays and see how it actually handles. Right, so here we are for the first of the replays. It's a tier 9 match, Himmelsdorf, and it's an encounter. Now, I do tend to struggle a little bit with this in tier 9, I don't mind admitting that, and that's because its armour really doesn't stand up in a tier 9 very well. It can side scrape quite well. It's got 90mm of side armour, which is more than a lot of the American ones, and you can side scrape in those. But yeah, most of the time it just doesn't quite stand up. When it's top tier against lower tier mediums, definitely it can really bounce a lot of shots, especially, you know, given a bit of range. But in tier 9, I don't know, you kind of have to flank a lot with this, and it's the same with the IS as well, and the Chinese IS. So anybody that's been through those tanks and done well in them and likes them will do well in this, and more than likely like it. But if you really didn't, yeah, I can't even get my words out now. It was going to be don't or didn't, and it was going to be don't. But anyway, if you really didn't or don't like that style of gameplay for the you know, for the IS, then just avoid this one. It's not going to be your thing. If you don't like that kind of play, then you're not going to like this tank. And like I say, when you bottom tier like this, you've got to try and flank as much as possible, because that 175mm sometimes just does not cut it in a tier 9 match. Against the front of an E75, for instance, the only place you can actually go for is the commander's hatch. You've got no chance of putting it through the lower plate, whereas something like a Tiger with 203mm of pen probably could pop it through the lower plate. Now, if I swapped to premium ammo, I think I'd probably have a good chance of doing it, but if they've got any angle to them or anything like that, then again, more than likely, possibly not. I could be wrong with the Tiger. I've not been in it for a while, so I can't quite remember, but yeah, I'm pretty sure I can put that through the lower plate of an E75 at the right range. Now, the other way of playing this, of course, is the sort of peek-a-boom, as you call it, where you're in cover, you pop out, you take your shot, normally a snapshot, something like that, although this is very, very poor at it, because its circle does disperse quite a lot when you're moving, so it's not a particularly good snapshot tank unless you're very close. Yeah, take your shot, pop back into cover and reload, because the armour, although it's not bad and it can, like I say, survive lower tier mediums, that sort of thing, even fairly close, especially because it's not got the flattened driver's hatch, you really don't want to rely on the armour of this overly much. Having said that, as he bounces off the back of an IS, or was that the side that it went slightly wide and hit? Now, flick it round and try and deal with Artie, and that was a slightly low roll, I think. A bit of a mercy roll there for old Artie, but he was finished off very quickly after by the light tank. Now, I was a bit surprised that there wasn't really anybody coming down the banana road. Normally, even in an encounter match, people tend to fight down there, so I thought I'll cover it. Top tier heavies probably wouldn't go down there, fingers crossed, and luckily for me they didn't. But yeah, I've always struggled with the IS, the IS-2 in tier 9 matches a little bit, and like I say, you do have to try and flank as much as possible, but try not to go off on your own, because you have got a fairly long reload. So if you get sort of lumbered against something that's got a fast reload, yeah, you can be in a bit of trouble. Now I'm trying to come back along, because I'd seen a couple of tanks coming down this way, and I was feeling a little bit brave, and then oh dear, an E75 took a snapshot, and I don't know if that just missed or bounced. And as I'm pulling back, I take a hit from him. I'm going to try and side scrape off here as best I can and go for that commander's hatch. But I've got to be careful not to expose too much of the front, and also my commander's hatch, which is quite large. But from this position, it's mostly covering my commander's hatch. I'm in cover, and I can shoot back at him. And you saw there, I looked down at the lower plate, and I had no chance. But luckily, I am actually hitting his commander's hatch. And don't forget .46 accuracy. Yeah. Yeah, I think the rumour's true that with Russian tanks, the bigger the number, the more accurate they are. That's how it seems to be sometimes. Now I've had to turn around to deal with this Pershing that's come up behind us, and again, I just sort of, a bit of a snapshot as I'm trying to pull into cover. I just wanted to try and get myself where I can angle, and I just flicked it to the side in time to bounce that one off my tracks, or, well, to absorb it in my tracks, should I say. And yeah, he's going for my commander's hatch, and I'm going to go for his, and I hit it again, not even fully aimed, and we cap out for the win. So not a bad match. I honestly did not expect to survive that match, but I did. Came out with a second class mastery, 2,400 damage done, 115,000, but I did get 50% extra for the op, and 2,308 damage done. Oh, and I came top of the table, which was really nice. That's not bad. And actually came second for damage on our team, yeah. So yeah, not a bad round. So you can make it work in a tier 9. You just have to play it quite cautiously. Now, here we are for the second replay. This time it's a tier 8 match, and Sand River, and it's a standard battle this time. And you know, some premium tanks you get that don't have preferential matchmaking. You just well, not always, but you just seem to have favourable matchmaking with it. It's not very often that you're bottom tier. You know, you're normally sort of top tier, or at the very least sort of middle tier. And yeah, it just tends to favour you a little bit. Now, I don't know if I can't remember if it's just today, because I've not been out in this for such a long time. But this has had very unfavourable matchmaking today. I think apart from one match, possibly, been either middle or bottom tier nearly every time in this today. But in a tier 8 match, you can definitely make it work. Some things will be troublesome for you. Tiger 2's at a bit of range, and you know, if they're angled properly, although you can put it straight through the lower plate if they're not. Trying to think what else. Possibly KV4s, that sort of thing. You know, there are going to be things that will give you a little bit of trouble if you don't aim carefully or plan your attack. But because it is quite a nippy, you know, fairly nimble heavy, it is quite good at flanking. And I know I probably say this about a few tanks, the VK4502A, the Liberté, but it's less your traditional heavy, and again more like a sort of medium heavy, or a heavy medium. No, I'd say more of a medium heavy. A heavy medium would be sort of the motherland. I don't know. I'm just rambling on now, but yeah, it's like I say, a bit less of your sort of traditional heavy. Now, Snakebite, they will struggle to get through the front. If they're firing premium, yeah, I think they probably would with that as well, to be honest. I can't remember what the premium penetration is on a Snakebite now, off the top of my head. And I was going to go after them, and then the enemy IS-2 came up. I managed to put a good hit, again, not even fully aimed. Not aimed in the slightest, and it went straight through his lower glacis there. But he got one into me in return, which I thought he would. I just couldn't pull back in time. Now, I'm a bit slow to get the first Snakebite, but I can get the second one, and I managed to track him as well, but I don't think I'm going to get the reload before he's got his tracks up and running again. In fact, nope, there we go. But the aim time, again, it's like the IS. I know I keep comparing it to that, but it's essentially the same tank, just with a different upper glacis. Yeah, the aim time is a bit of a killer at times. That 3.4 seconds, and I don't know, there's been the odd match today where I've been quite impatient with it, and you know where they're disappearing and you need to take the shot, and it's just been going absolutely wildly wide. But I managed to pop over there and put one into the front of the enemy IS. Now he's not fully upgraded. It looks like he's possibly got the, I think, is it an 85mm that you get on there? And I was just checking behind me, but looking at the map, I should have looked at the map. I just had a feeling something was coming up on that flank, but it looks like it's possibly been dealt with or buggered off. No, it's buggered off, not been dealt with yet. Now I've got a shot. He's roughly there, and yeah, he was. And I'm going to try and get down off this high rise bit in the gully and down a bit further. Now the T25/2, I felt fairly confident at range, again angled properly, that I could possibly bounce the odd shot from him. If not, I don't know, I might have been a bit optimistic there, to be honest, but T32, I'm going to have to be quite careful of him. T37 up there as well. Can I get him? No, not quite. Oh, yes I can. Oh, and it just tracked him. And we've got Tiger. I've been spotted, but that was a bounce. I think it went slightly wide and just clipped the turret. But again, I've not taken this out for such a long time because, like I say, I got kind of fed up with the gun because it was just on so many things I was using. But I've had fun in it today, I really have. But again, if you like this kind of gameplay and you like this style, then you're probably going to like this tank. You know, why wouldn't you? If you like the normal IS, you'll like this. But if you really don't like that, you know, 122mm slow reload, big alpha damage kind of gameplay, then like I say, just give this one a miss. Oh, and Tiger 131, yeah, it is a tier 7. It's in the Tankopedia now if you want to go and have a look at it. And I think they've put Fury back in there as well, in the Tankopedia on the website. So yeah, it is in there. Tier 7 with preferential matchmaking. Now, something I didn't cover in the garage this time are the package prices. Now, because these don't stay on, I didn't know, I don't know, it seems a little bit redundant covering them, but I'm not too sure. Just let me know what you think. If you'd rather I just cover the packages very quickly, then I will do. I'll carry on with that, but if not, I'll just carry on like this. But it is available for between 5,600 for the base package and 8,500 fully loaded with various equipment. So the base package at 5,800, that's not too bad, to be honest. I think Tiger 131 is listed in the Tankopedia at about 7,700, something like that. So now this T32, and again, oh, it just bounces off his tracks, and I don't think I'm going to get any damage into him before he's done. No, I didn't. But yeah, he was done for. We basically just mobbed him. And I know it kind of seems a bit redundant not going through the cap circle, because obviously they'd been spotted and what have you, but if they weren't paying attention to the map, then by not going through the cap circle, sort of, you know, make it look as though there are possibly only 4 down here, or sometimes it is a bit tricky to see if there's a big pile of tanks next to each other to determine how many are actually there. So I try and always avoid the cap if possible, but it looks like we're going to cap out before we get up to that medium and that heavy to do any more damage. So I think I'll start wrapping up now, but yeah, there you go, that's the IS-2. So main difference, slightly smaller engine, slightly less physical thickness to the front of the armour, but it's got a lot better sloping. Apart from that, and obviously the bonuses, it's basically an IS, same gun handling. So if you really want to have a go in it before you buy it, jump in the IS if you can, and that'll give you a really good idea. But I came out of that with 88,000 silver, 4,290 bullets for a daily double, 3,250 damage done and a little bit of blocked, and that put me second. So I'm quite happy with that. That was an earlier match, one of the first ones I played in it today, I think. So yeah, I was quite happy with that one. But there you go, the IS-2. I hope that's informed you as to whether you'd actually like to give it a go. And yeah, I hope you've enjoyed it. So as always, take care out there, and I'll catch you next time. See you later.